This is part two of consumer credit. So we're going to talk about warning signs of debt problems. If you find yourself paying only the minimum balance each month or making the minimum payment each month, you definitely want to reassess your current position. You might be a little stretched out. You need to start clearing some other expenses to start bringing down your debt level. Increasing the total balance due each month. If you review your balance sheet that you learned how to prepare in previous chapters that we discussed, and you see that your liabilities continue to go up and not your equity, your net worth, you may have a problem. Now, I bring that up because if your net worth is going up, it's not abnormal that your liabilities may be going up as well. So it's not necessarily always a case where if your liabilities are going up, you have a problem. No, not necessarily. If you got a promotion, a pay increase, and you bought a bigger home, your mortgage then might be higher. So your liabilities went up, but it was a fair increase, to put it that way. Missing an alternative payments or paying late, similar or actually worse, similar but worse than doing the minimum monthly payment. Typically, that's the order it happens. You're making the minimum monthly payments and you're so stretched out that then you start missing your payments. Intentionally using overdraft protection or taking frequent cash advances. This is very bad, especially cash advances, because you just would, like they say, kicking the can down the road to a worse situation. Using savings to pay routine bills such as food. So now that you're in debt and you're struggling to making those payments, in order to just be able to buy food that should have been a priority above debt, now you're dipping into your savings. So decreasing savings as you move forward is another bad sign. Receiving second or third payment notices, that just goes along with missing payments. Not talking to your partner about money or talking only about money. So these are the two extremes. If you are married or have a significant other, living with somebody, a partner, and you do not discuss the finances of the home, that's a problem. But like they say, if you only talk about money, that's also a problem. Depending on overtime to meet routine expenses. So what you do is like, oh, well, I'll just put in more overtime. That's fine to get more money that way. What we're saying is that if you have to do it because your debt levels are high, that's problematic. We do recommend in a situation like that is, sure, go ahead and put the overtime, but start using that money to get out of debt, not to just stay afloat or to just maybe even incur more debt, which a lot of people do. Warning signs of debt problems. Again, using up your savings. We talked about it before that as your savings going down, you may have a problem. It's supposed to be going up. Borrowing money to pay old debts. This is it's not going to say a very common practice, but a lot more common than you would think. So people will get new credit cards to pay off old credit cards to be able to buy time. But all you're doing is digging yourself deeper in the hole. Not knowing how much you owe. Can you right now tell with certainty, right there, top of your head, my total debts are this much? Or do you have to go back and look to see where your balances are and all that? You should always be aware how much, not down to the penny, but you should have a ballpark figure very close to what's your total liabilities. Going over your credit limit on credit cards, same thing as overdraft, post-dated checks, things like that. Having little or no savings for the unexpected emergency, in other words, back to the savings things. You start going down on your savings or you just haven't saved at all. Being denied credit due to a credit report. So once it starts hitting your credit report, you definitely have a debt problem. You start getting the negative hits. Getting a credit card revoked by the issuer. Revoke doesn't mean deny. That means you already had the credit card and they call you or they send you a letter saying, we're shutting down your credit card. They do periodic checks on your debt levels, putting off medical or dental visits because you can't afford them now. So similar to not being able to buy food, not be able to do these other things that are important in life because your money's going all to credit cards and debt. We do have consumer credit counseling services. Some are private, some are government, some are nonprofit. If you cannot pay your bills and need help, talk to your creditors and try to work out an adjusted repayment plan. We mentioned that earlier. Sometime at the beginning, they're never going to be very receptive, but you just have to keep on trying. And you can go ahead and seek help from a nonprofit financial counseling program. Sometimes not only they provide counseling and assistance and help you get organized, but sometimes they may also place the calls for you and talk to the creditors. It depends on the service that you're dealing with. So consumer credit counseling service, in this case, we're talking specifically about this one. It's a nonprofit, which is supported by contributions from banks, credit unions, merchants, etc. So the people that do lend provide this, and it helps keep the system going, and it benefits both sides. Provides debt counseling services for those with serious financial problems. Now, it doesn't have to be serious, or what you may think is not serious could be very serious. So you don't have to wait for things to go really bad to say, oh, now I have a serious financial problem. If you're feeling a little uneasy about financial issues, you can contact them and they'll guide you and help you the best they can. Aids families by helping set up realistic budget and plan for expenditures. Training, they probably do a good training. Provides education about credit buying and budgeting, some more training. Can administer a debt repayment plan. In some situations, an example is that instead of you going, because there's some psychological issues here too, where people just feel overwhelmed by having to manage all these different debts. Some of these services, sometimes, as an example, is you go ahead and send the money to this one place and they take care of distributing those payments. So it makes it easy on the person. Here's this chunk of money. Please take care of these debts for me. Now, there's more to it, but that's just an example. It does help a lot of people because it lowers a lot of stress. How to choose a credit counselor? Well, what services do you offer? Some have different services that may be suitable for different types of people. Free information. If you have a debt problem, you shouldn't be paying for this information to begin with. Why would you incur more expenses on top of what you already have? What are your fees? Now, while they're nonprofit and all that, once the information should be free. Now, once you get into the services, that's where there might be some fees involved because operating an organization costs money, even if they're nonprofit. How will the debt management plan work? They have to give you like the projections, what does it look like, expectations. Can you get my creditors to lower or eliminate my interest and fees? As I mentioned before, some of these organizations will place phone calls for you to see if they can renegotiate your situation. What if I cannot afford to pay you? Do they also become the next debt problem that you're going to have and be sent to collections? Would you help me avoid future problems? This is part of the counseling and preparation and plan, but there's something that has to be very clear about this. These organizations can help you avoid future problems, but they can only do that as long as you, the borrower with the problem, actively participates in what they recommend to do. They cannot pull miracles or do things for you. And this happens a lot. They get in a plan, they set it up, they tell them there's help with future problems. The individual doesn't follow those steps and then comes back. It's like, why am I still in problems? You didn't help me. That is very common. Will we have a contract? Depending on the service, you may have to sign a contract. Are your counselors accredited or certified? There are accreditation certifications. You should prefer the ones that are. Now let's talk about bankruptcy. You may have heard the word before, but do understand there's actually different types of bankruptcy. At the end of the day is the court gets involved, and now there might be some negotiation, but whatever the court decides, it becomes an order, a court order. So this is not about you negotiating and the creditors doing favors for you. There will be a review of your situation. There may be some negotiations with some talks with the people you owe money to, but it is not a voluntary system at this point. The court decides what's going to happen and how it's going to happen, and it becomes a legal order, and everybody has to follow it. Now, there are two types of bankruptcy. One thing here on the bullets, declaring bankruptcy is a last resort. You should try to avoid that at all costs, because this has a huge negative impact for the next 10 years of your life, at least. So let's talk about Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Here's some terminology. The person filing the bankruptcy, that's the person that owes the money. And what you do is you go through a court process. As we mentioned, the court gets involved. And this is what is known as a straight bankruptcy. The court can order some of the debtors, the people that lend you money or that you owe money to say, that's it, they're not going to pay, wipe it off. It will go on your credit report, but they cannot collect anymore. That is one of the things that could come out of that order. The other thing, and this is what we call liquidation, they see what things you have that can be sold, and the cash that gets collected will then be used to pay those creditors. Now, they don't always get paid in full, but they get some money. Not all your assets can be sold. It varies between state and state, but typically you get to keep your home and cars, as long as let's say the car is a Bentley or something so expensive, they may go ahead and sell and say, just buy a cheaper car, because they understand that a car may be important for you to continue working and be productive, because the idea is not to hurt you more. The idea is to keep you productive and not cash strapped. So how the assets get sold, it really depends. It gets evaluated, but they're not going to leave you homeless or without a car necessarily, depending on the situation. And then that cash gets used to pay your creditors. And like I said, they can keep some assets. So that's the liquidation one. And then after that, all those debts are gone. No matter how much, if they got money or not, doesn't matter. It gets written off. It goes on your credit report for the next 10 years, but it gets written off. You don't got to worry about them or making payments to them anymore. And this is what they mean. Now, you still may owe to some entities that will not get written off typically. It could, but it's not typical. So if there were taxes that you owe to the government, that's very rare. It's going to get written off. The government likes to collect their taxes. Things like child support and alimony, that would be very, very rare for it to be written off. Student loans, as you know, now we have a lot of changes coming down the pipeline on student loans. We don't know which direction is going to end up, but as of right now, to write off a student loan or bankruptcy, it's possible, but very difficult. Any other debts that were not disclosed in the process, that's common sense. If it was not brought up during the evaluation and that debt is still there, then the court wasn't able to order anything on that debt. If there were debts from fraud, embezzlement, or criminal activity like driving while intoxicated, larceny, in other words, all these are just criminal activity. What happens is you cannot use the legal court system to favor you against criminal activity that you participated in. So this is very common, not just in bankruptcy. The court cannot be used to enforce criminal activity. That's pretty much what it comes down to. So you may still owe that money. They might be able to write those off. The willful and malicious acts, kind of similar mentality of the criminal activity. Now we talk about Chapter 13 bankruptcy. This is a little different. So instead of just writing off debts, liquidating your assets to pay them, this is what is called more like a restructuring. they say, okay, we're going to talk to all the people you owe the money to. You're still going to owe them, and you're still going to have to make payments to them. But what's going to be negotiated is interest rates, the amount owed. Let's say, look, you owe this much money, but there's no way you're going to be able to pay that off. So they lower the amount owed. Let's say the time you had to pay was short. They can stretch it out to make it a little easier on the payments. So what they're doing is they're changing the conditions of the money you owe, so make it a little easier for you to pay them back over time. Yes, it may reduce the level, like write off a portion of it, but it's not like the other bankruptcy where if something gets decided, everything gets done and it's over. This one is like a repayment plan, a restructured repayment plan to make it that affordable, and it can be revisited and adjusted. And that's what this one. So this is different in that sense. Depending on your situation, one may favor you more than the other. However, both will go on your credit report for the good 10 years. That's it for this video. See you on the next one.